Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Thor from the Happy Campers team, and today I'm going to be talking about what not to do in Iceland. So let's go. So when you're traveling to any country, the last thing you want is to not fit in and for the locals to be looking at you like a weirdo. Because if you're like me, you're already weird enough in the first place. So that's why I created this simple list of things to avoid so you can just have a happy trip without getting pointed and laughed at. Or worse yet, yelled at. But before I go into the list, I want to point out that Icelanders in general are very open, accepting, and generous people. Love to talk to travelers. Some might say that it's because we desperately want you to like us. You know, that's why we ask you, how do you like Iceland a million times? So when you come to Iceland, you can expect to find mostly helpful and kind people. But you are risking that to change if you do any or all of these things on this list. So let's jump into it. Number one, disrespecting the Icelandic nature. This is going to be the locals' biggest pet peeve, and probably, hopefully, for an obvious reason. By disrespecting nature, I mean driving off-road where there are no roads. That is a huge no-no. Another one is walking on moss or ripping out moss, not complying with, safety signs or restrictions on where you can and can't go. Not only is that dangerous, but it's also just disrespectful, and you should definitely not do that. Number two, drive like a person who is not that good at driving. Want to use a shorter word, but that might have been slightly rude. So the most common thing travelers do is that they're driving down the road somewhere outside of Reykjavik. They see the northern lights or just an amazing opportunity for a photo, and they just, hammer the brakes, stop in the middle of the road, or, very recklessly kind of on the side of the road, and it endangers other drivers. So definitely don't do that. If you want to stop, find a proper place to park the car and be safe. You also don't want to be driving too fast, because in Iceland, just for your own sake mostly, in Iceland we have a lot of speeding cameras. So in Iceland is expensive, so you can get some pretty hefty speeding tickets. Or driving like you don't know how to drive. If you're uncomfortable with driving in Iceland, just accept that. Either have somebody else drive or pull over when you're feeling very insecure. Another common thing that we see is that people rent a stick shift when they think they know how to drive stick shift, or they might do it accidentally and they just don't know how to drive a stick shift. So if you're renting a stick shift car, make sure you are comfortable driving that car. Number three, camping wherever you're like. It used to be the case you could basically just take your camper van or tent and camp wherever you want it, but now the rules have changed and you have to spend the night at a designated campsite. Especially if you're driving a vehicle, a camper, an RV, thing like that, you need to be staying at a designated campsite. And if you don't, you can expect locals to knock on your door and asking you to leave. Number four, going to the bathroom wherever you want. You might run into the issue, especially if you're renting a camper without a toilet, that you need to go to the bathroom and there's no bathroom right there and then. Don't just go by the side of the road unless it's an absolute emergency. It is definitely frowned upon, because it's become kind of a thing in Iceland where tourists are doing it all the time, and there are plenty of places you can find bathrooms. You're going to be driving through lots of small towns with gas stations. There are campsites everywhere. Plan ahead and schedule some bathroom breaks in there. Number five is not preparing. Not preparing for the Icelandic conditions is a common mistake, something that the Icelanders look at as kind of a form of disrespect to the Icelandic nature. You have to respect Icelandic nature and the weather and realize that it's not really a laughing matter or something to take lightly. If you take it lightly and you don't prepare, you don't look up conditions, we might have to call out the search and rescue team, which could have been avoided. Also, don't be walking on glaciers, without a tour guide. Another example is river crossings. If you're not comfortable with crossing rivers, don't do it by yourself. So that's it for some of the more serious points, but now on to the slightly less serious points, starting with not showering before getting into a public pool. So most people think it's weird to be completely naked around a bunch of strangers, but Icelanders, not so much. Especially if you're in a locker room about to enter a swimming pool. Not only do we think it's completely normal to shower naked around other people, but we actually expect others to do it because in Iceland we don't have as much chlorine and chemicals in our pool, so we need people to clean their bits before entering the swimming pool. So make sure that you follow the instructions. You'll find them in the locker rooms. And don't worry, if you think it's weird, you're probably the only one. Most people don't care at all what's going on. Some places will have, you know, like curtains or some way to kind of get some privacy, but that is definitely not the norm. So the next point is do not buy water. People won't really get pissed off at you. Icelanders are environmentally conscious, and buying a bunch of plastic is never a great idea. But more importantly, just for yourself, Iceland has some of the best, purest water. You can drink it straight from the tap, so it's basically just a waste of money buying water straight from the bottle. People are probably gonna give you some weird looks if you have a bunch of bottled water with you. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've kind of lost track of where we are, so I'm just gonna subtly say next point is do not tip. So tipping is not really in the Icelandic culture, so you don't really need to do it, and you could actually just make it a little bit more awkward if you do. Service fee is already included in people's salaries. People are earning a living wage in the food industry, so don't tip. All right, so the next tip is do not feed those Icelandic horses. So you're gonna be coming across a lot of Icelandic horses on your drive throughout Iceland, and they are adorable, yes. And you might even think that they are freezing out there and you want to give them something delicious. But just know that they are actually being well taken care of by their owners. So please do not feed them anything unless there's a sign or somebody there that says that it's okay. And finally, so you know how people say there's no such thing as stupid questions? Yeah, that's kind of not true, is it? So if you can at all avoid it, don't ask stupid questions like, do you believe in elves? Do you know this one Icelandic guy that you know because you assume everybody knows everybody in Iceland? Okay, sometimes it's true, but questions like that have some truth to them. But if you ask the wrong person, it can actually be a little bit offensive, and yeah, let's just avoid it. That's it for today's Happy Friday video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, give that like button a little tickle and subscribe. If you think I'm forgetting something, maybe you know from experience, something that you regret doing in Iceland, let's hear it in the comments. And look out for a future video where I'll be talking about what not to do in Iceland in terms of, you know, tours and activities and tourist traps and things like that. You know, how to maximize your experience in Iceland. That's coming up in a future video. But until then, happy travels, and I'll see you here next time.